Yeah, it
That's a
is.
really, really cool invention. I think Japan does this. It has kind of just like crazy inventions that no one else would think about. But actually, they're super useful because why do you need a fan on your face? You need it on your neck, don't you? So that's exactly what is required. So anyway, listen, let's catch up at another time because we've actually gone live, Ala. We're live, everybody. Welcome to Brainfood Live on Air. It's episode 211, bringing it to you every Friday. And I'm super excited to be having this conversation with you today because it's a new kind of idea. Always when we're doing Brainfood Live, we are bringing recruitment professionals onto screen and we're learning from practitioners and vendors and all those types of cool guys. But this time we wanted to do something different because obviously we have seen some tremendous changes in terms of how artificial intelligence is influencing the world of work. And maybe no industry is changing as hard and fast as software engineering. And so through conversations with my friends in the industry, one of the things that we wanted to discuss was, okay, if AI was going to change how software engineering is practiced, does that then change the sort of skills that software engineers need to develop in order to be the capable ones in the next era of how you build software? And if that is the case, shouldn't we as tech recruiters know about that? Because if the skills priorities start changing for what software engineers are doing, then our priorities will also change in terms of how we recruit for them. And today we've got a brilliant show for us because we're bringing on a bunch of people that are software engineers and they're going to tell us all about their experiences with AI. And remember, folks, they've been using generative AI probably about 9 months more than we have. And of course, as the people who've been building this type of technology, they'll have much deeper knowledge and I think a better handle as to how it might influence the future than most other people. So it's going to be a fascinating show. But firstly, folks, as we always do, let's do some sound checks. Let's make sure everyone can hear me okay. I'm in a different venue because my home office is destroyed with roadworks and I have really bad internet. So I've actually booked a room in a Regis office, would you believe? So I'm in one of those booths trying to do only soundproof booths doing it, which I kind of like. I think it might actually be something I'll start to do because I kind of enjoy it. Anyway, let's do the sound checks. Can you hear me okay? I'm using a new mic. I'm using a kind of a new location. Let me know whether that sound is fine in the chat and comments. We should be live streaming this everywhere. So this is on my LinkedIn. It's on my Facebook, on my Twitter. It's on about a dozen people's LinkedIn as well. So if you can kind of see it from those places, let me know whether the audio there is okay as well. Drop me a line and a comment into the LinkedIn thread and let me know whether you can hear me okay. I'm just going to check on my phone whether I can actually see whether I've gone live or not. Give me a sec. Grinding away. I'm still on 4G here. Yeah, looks like I'm live. That's fine. Okay, great. Listen, we have upgraded Adam Gordon today, clearly, as you can see, because we've got Alla Pavlova to join us to help us navigate this conversation. So, Alla, always great to see you. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much. Always great to be here. I will introduce myself quickly. My name is Sala. I'm based in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, beautiful city. I'm a tech talent sourcer at Riot Games, training sourcers, being hands-on as well. And I know that my mom is watching the show, so hey, mom.
That's great. Hey, Miss Pavlova, very nice to see you watching along. So Alla, great to see you as ever. Let's have a look at the newsletter from last week. Did you read it? And if so, what was interesting for you?
So I just wanted to ask you, like, we started to receive a lot of notifications from you, Han. So I just want to make sure that the latest news that I read was the issue 118.
That really depends on what newsletter you're looking at. Because I write two newsletters now. So
can you tell us a little bit more? So which one should we read and how we navigate? Because
we should be reading them all, obviously. But when we review the newsletter, we should be reviewing the one that was out on Sunday. So this should be the Brainfood Recruiting Brainfood newsletter on Sunday. So Have a
So
look
that's
at that. And actually, whilst you hunt around for this, I've totally forgot, nearly forgot to thank our sponsors for the show. So let me use this segue to quickly do that. I want to thank our sponsors. It is Code Signal. They're the companies that are sponsoring this week's Brainfood Live. Bear in mind, folks, we can't run this type of show without the support of our sponsors. And Code Signal have stepped up and said they wanted to help us run this show today. For everyone in software, I'm sure, knows Code Signal. They're one of the premium software testing and assessment platforms out there. If you're hiring software engineers in any way, and you don't have a testing solution of some type, then obviously use something like Code Signal. That's going to help you get further in your process. They've also got some fantastic resources to help tech recruiters get better. So make sure you avail yourself to their wonderful stuff. They're very community orientated business. The sort of company I think that will do tech recruiters very well. Anyway, check out Code Signal, folks. Okay, Ala, let's have a look. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, a few things. So I hope that I have the relevant one, the ones that I read the last ones. So the first one is about the graphic designers reacting on the AI, on the like generative AI for photographic generative AI, and so the thing is that I'm also looking a lot for the designers and the people in the art industry, and the struggle a lot. And I know this topic is still hot, and I know, Han, you also have your opinion about it, but I have mixed feelings. So the ones, oops, sorry, I'm gonna close it. Sorry, I got the audio going when I opened the link. So basically, the reaction of the artists is that it's great to have the technologies, but we are really suffering. So our job was jeopardized. We're been laid off, or we created something that is not unique anymore. And so the overall feeling that I have from designers and people in art, they're like not happy about the things that Gordon, it's just me or it's frozen? No, I don't think it's frozen. No, you're not frozen, Gordon.
I think I'm okay. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just you.
me too. So there are like a lot of reactions on TikTok right now and on Air Station trying to protect artists from AI. But it is actually inevitable that AI will be in any profession. So
You know
what do you
what?
think?
It's actually really interesting. I think that there's actually going to be a report next week on Sunday about this, like the AI anxiety by the creative profession. And it is very telling that it's the creatives that it's probably surprising for us, but the creatives have kind of felt the threat from AI first, and probably software engineers pretty close to that, because they're very intimately tied to the production of digital outputs. And of course, generative AI it seems to be most sort of applicable to this type of stuff. If you haven't seen it, by the way, folks, just jump onto any platform, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it might be, and just observe what's going on. You're looking at sort of Photoshop generative fill, I think it's called. It's a remarkable kind of way of basically creating an image that would have previously taken a software designer or a graphic designer many hours to have done. So it is very it's very difficult for the creative talents, I think, to have this moment. But we can't relax, because whatever they're feeling right now is going to be felt by everyone else, I think. So it's going to be very interesting for us. Okay, I'll give us some more. I think there is some glitches.
Yeah,
I wonder whether it's still me in terms of like location,
I
but
don't know. Yeah,
nothing we
let
can do
us
about
know.
that. Yeah, we just got to roll forward. Yeah.
Yeah. So another fascinating read that I'm really grateful for you, Han, that you have that you collect in all the interesting reports is about the state of the tech in European tech report.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's a term about silent not hiring or something like that, but it's clearly in this report stated about the issues with the financing startups and with venture capitalists working right now with investing in many companies, and a lot of, I'm not going to, of course, name names, silent hiring, silent not hiring, to be honest, because basically, when I'm talking to recruiters, they from the companies that are completely dependent on the investments, that they say that they post the jobs, but they're not actually hiring. And there are people who like really applied for the job, had the interview, but didn't get anything, like a really like generic reply. So that was very painful. But basically, a lot of people are saying that in Europe right now, the investments are not coming, and a lot of startups, they're not laying an awful lot of people, but they're also not growing, and they just like frozen. And this report is amazing. So it just shows really the numbers.
It's a fact. I mean, the a description of what startup is often is that it's either a pre-revenue business or certainly a pre-profit business. It's fed by investment funding to get them to build really quick. So that's a normal thing, that they'll be operating without revenue, without profit, etc. But it also means that they're very dependent on that cash coming in from investors who are predicting growth. And we've seen that that's really been chopped back significantly over this period, which basically means that they can't grow, and therefore not doing so much recruitment, which means cascading down to us in recruiting, we're doing less work. Or less of us are doing that work. And in fact, we've seen that with people coming into the market. By the way, folks, if anybody's watching this and they're looking for work, let's say you're a recruiter and you're actually on the market, do get in touch with me, or, make sure you connect with everyone. We're going to do the LinkedIn share later on today, later on in the show, but put your LinkedIn into the comment threads. Make sure that everyone connects with you here, and sign up to the things like the Brainfood Talent Collective, for instance. I'm trying to collect people who basically are actively looking for work, and I'm pushing those people to companies that are saying that they're still hiring for recruiters. So I'm not sure if it's effective or not, but it's something we can try and do. So let me just share the link there. Basically, messages, we're here to help if you're looking for work. Don't do this in silence. There's going to be tons of stuff going on, which I think that's the jobs page. There's going to be tons of stuff that is happening events-wise that I think can really help as well. So make sure you just turn up to those events. I was at an event yesterday, and even though I didn't sort of use it as a leads generation sort of exercise, things were still happening simply because I was present there. And I think if you can be physically present to some of these events, go and attend to them. And if you can't, then obviously things like Brainfood Live and other shows that are out there that are interactive and want to speak to different community members, go ahead and make yourself like really visible in those spaces. Okay, Ala, listen, let's move forward because we're running out of time already. We're up 15 minutes, so we want to try and bring on our guests here. Let's bring on some of our techie guys first, and then we'll bring more of our recruiter guys later on. So let's bring on our friend Joshua Hoffman, who, Ala, I think you know very well. And we'll bring on... Yeah, we'll bring on Serban Constantino as well, and we'll see what they say. Folks, let me know what you think. How are you speaking to software engineers? What are they telling you about AI? How has their jobs changed as far as their reports have gone? I'll be interested to know whether you have any developer friends and whether you've interacted with them, because yeah, I found it really educational to have this sort of interaction. And there's Joshua, at least. Josh, great to see you. You're looking very well, sir. Magnificent beard as ever. Josh, why don't you introduce yourself real quick for the folks who don't know you? Who are you? What it is you do?
Yeah, so I'm Joshua Hoffman, and thanks, Sung, for having me, and Paula, great to see you again. Actually now it has changed since we last spoke. I'm the CTO at Sharpest, which is a digital coaching platform, and we provide digital coaching, learning, and leadership development for professionals all around the world at every level. And we do it through a digital platform. So it is done wherever you are, and we find the right coach, and we help people get better at whatever they want to get better at.
Fantastic stuff. And we also have Serban Constantino here as well. Serban, great to see you. Serban, you can introduce yourself real quick as how you wish to introduce yourself. Go ahead, man.
Likewise, great to see you, man. So I'm Serban Constantinescu. I'm a product manager at the fine company and through a mutual friend, I came to know Hung. Excited to be here. Excited to be talking to you about technology and how this is going to change recruiting, but also many other spaces like software engineering, product management, and so on. I think it's an exciting moment, and I'm hoping that through the churn and through all the pain that we've sort of discussed about a bit earlier, I think there's going to be evolution, and there's going to be a brighter side at the other end. So yeah, looking forward to chatting to you folks about that.
Let's kick this off as a very broad way. I think it would be fair to say that where the software engineers were the first to substantively encounter generative AI in a professional context, because Copilot came out, I don't know when, it was a year or two ago, right? It was actually well in advance of a comparable software elsewhere. And it kind of immediately created impact, didn't it? It was like it was like an asteroid hitting the planet. Everyone's going nuts over it. I wonder whether, for the folks who don't know, Josh, you could just explain quickly what Copilot is. How would you describe it to a lay audience?
Yeah, I think the easiest way, for anyone who's used Gmail, you'll notice it has this autocomplete feature. So if you're typing an email to someone and it tries to guess what you want to say next and suggests it, and then you can just hit space or enter and it autocompletes for you. Copilot is a very advanced, very sophisticated autocomplete, just like that, but for writing software, so for writing code. And depending on how well known the thing you want to do is, so the more common the task, the better it's going to be at doing it for you. You could even, for example, let's say you're writing some Python code, just write the name of a function, and it could fill in the logic of that function for you, which is amazing. But I want to be clear, it is most effective at doing this, again, with common things. So if you're trying to come up with some really innovative new thing, it's not going to write it for you. But that everyday autocomplete is going to speed you up quite a lot.
Have you both used it? I mean, are you users of this software? What's your verdict on this, guys?
So I've used it experimentally, but we currently don't allow it in the shop because we have some privacy concerns and some concerns about IP leakage.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I've used it a little bit, and actually I'll correct you a little bit. I think I would say that some of these technologies have been around for a while, like the original Transformers paper that OpenAI is based on dates 2 or 3 years back. So some of these technologies have been around for a while. I think the way I look at them is that sort of like in the evolution of human race, you've had tools along the way that helped you do things a lot easier, right? And I think Joshua was saying that if you do a genetic task, then you can do that task basically 10 times faster now. And I think that's slowly being applied to other fields, right? Like we see it now with Adobe Photoshop. We're going to see it with other tools, I'm sure, over the coming years. But primarily it applies to the things that are either tedious or are either genetic, right? Like not the things that are specialized in some sort of way. So it's important to bear that in mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a miracle tool that's going to solve every problem, but it looks like it's going to remove a lot of the standard sort of work that a software developer would previously have had to, let's say, hand code in, type in, or drag in from a library somewhere, or, you know, oftentimes copy paste it in, right? I mean, has GPT replaced copy paste as just an action that developers perform? I wonder whether anybody's actually monitoring the frequency of copy paste function globally, and whether that's gone down as a result of GPT of Copilot emerging. Probably it has some effect, right? Because you would imagine that there's obviously errors in copy paste, whereas the Copilot seems to be error free because it's running error-free on the standard function, let's say. It's not going to do an accidental type error, let's say. It's not going to do, you know,
don't be so sure.
Well, maybe we can.
I'd plus one that. I'd say that I work on a product that has an ecosystem of over 3 billion users and millions of developers. The most common errors we see are the errors that are basically copy pasted from Stack Overflow. If for those not familiar with Stack Overflow, that's sort of like the quora for software engineers. Like you go there, ask a question, get an answer, those sort of things. And I'm 100% sure that going forward, we're going to see the most common mistakes again and again at a much higher frequency, because now all the data that OpenAI and the Google models and all the other models out there use is based on public data that has these quirks, right?
Have you guys like 'cause I think both of you manage or lead teams or have done so in the past, right? How have your teams been using this? Have you given them direction as to what they should or should not be doing, or have you kind of have a laissez-faire approach to it? And hey, we just want you to just be a coder. If you want to use sort of technologies of this type, great. If not, then also great. What's been your policy as a leader or a manager of software engineers? Joshua, why don't you give this a go first?
Yeah, great question. So my company, we work, of course, with individuals, but we also work with large enterprises, and some are in highly regulated sectors. So we have to have some strict policies around information security and so forth. And this goes right down to the individual software engineer. So definitely not a laissez-faire attitude. When it comes to tools, we're pretty strict, and they have to be approved to be allowed to be used. But of course, people Google, and the Stack Overflow thing, just to briefly answer your previous question, I think copy and paste doesn't change, but visits to Stack Overflow go down because people are visiting ChatGPT instead. But number one principle for me, before we talk about any assistive tools, is that no software engineer on my team ever commits any single line of code they don't understand and cannot explain. Because this is how you get around the problem of, I asked ChatGPT for an example. It gave me an example. I tested it. It seemed to work. I committed it, but I don't fully understand it. And a month from now, we have an incredibly subtle bug that we're going to spend 3 days troubleshooting, because it turns out that while this function seemed to work that ChatGPT wrote, there's some edge case where it doesn't work. And because the person who committed it didn't fully understand it, they would put us at risk. So always they need to understand every line of code before it goes in.
Would it be fair to say that does that mean that, let's say, I'm anticipating the use of assistive technology would kind of increase the pace of code production, let's say, in the sense that everyone's saying, it's increased productivity by whatever percent it has been. But if you're saying, that simply means that we need to increase the due diligence of the volume of due diligence goes up because there's more code. Does that also mean that the overall pace of production has been the same, Joshua, or would you say actually it has speeded up a little bit, or has it even slowed down as a result of the emergence of this technology?
So great question. And in our case, the diligence is the same, right? We have the same reviews going through any code submission. There's peer review, and there's also all of the automated testing. We're going to do this no matter what, because we're very focused on high quality and not redoing things twice. What I would say is that these type of tools, they speed up the slower software engineers for sure, because they're getting the template code, the boilerplate stuff, the things that are the same in all projects. And they certainly can assist the sort of very senior, very fast engineers, but overall, not a huge change. But for some people, it definitely picks up the pace, because if you have to spend 2 hours researching something to figure out how to put this, write this function or create this code that you need, and instead you can just ask ChatGPT or Copilot to write it for you, then you kind of have a much stronger starting point to even spend the time to understand it, because it's kind of like, the destination, Google gave you the route, so you can see it now on the map, whereas previously maybe you didn't even know the destination, right? And so having the information sped up is great, but it's a tool, right? It has to be used carefully. And for those that really understand how to use it and leverage it, it does make them faster. But you're only faster if you're carefully avoiding causing problems that, then slow you down later.
Very interesting. Serban, let's go to you. How's your team adopting it? I mean, everyone's going to adopt technology like this in a different pace, based on their attitude, based on their capacity, based on their value set, or whatever it might be, even their style. Have you observed sort of the different adoption rate of your team, and what has been the outcome from your assessment of their quality of code production? Has it gone up or down? What's your view?
I think what I would say is that I'm somewhat privileged compared to Joshua, just because I work at a company that's actually leading some of the generative AI tooling and leading some of the work that goes on here. So I actually don't have to worry that much about privacy, right? Because like some of these tools are internal to us, we're still developing them, we can play around with them. I don't have to worry about that part. But I would say that similar to what Joshua said, especially the younger folks, the more junior folks, benefit a lot because they can more easily figure out how they can do the same thing, probably in a slightly different way, or how they can basically get to do the hard stuff, right? Like sometimes it's difficult to get to do the hard stuff because you have all this boilerplate code that you need to add around to get to that point. So I would say that maybe across the board, the junior folks have started using these tools and are using them in their day-to-day flows. I think the more senior folks have been skeptical because they get to that point where it's not anymore generic what they're doing. It's likely more specialized, and they probably have seen more of the wrong answers than the right answers. But I think not just in software engineering, but also in other industries, I think it's going to be important to do what Joshua said. Like, how do you actually review the information that's given to you and make sure that actually folks understand that, right? It's going to be the same with images. It's going to be the same with many other things. And I think that's probably where a lot of the tooling and a lot of the infrastructure is lacking today. Like, there's probably no way to actually tell that the code wasn't written by Joshua, but that was written by a machine. And hopefully, through the review, you come to a conclusion that the folk that wrote it actually understands it. And I think I wanted to make it just a slight segue. I was chatting about the podcast, and I was chatting about sort of what perspective you folks might have with a really good friend of mine that has been around for a while, pretty senior in the tech industry. And he was telling me that back in the 90s, like in the job interviews he was hosting, one of the key questions was like, how would you look for this? And people would be like, oh, I'll pull out the data manual, I would look through it, find the right relevant pages, and then go and write that, right? And he wasn't looking for that. The right answer, he was like, I would use the web search engine, which was new at that point, right? So I think there's got to be an evolution where actually the folks that embrace these tools and use them as sort of like to power up their abilities are going to be at the forefront of recruiting opportunities and opportunities in general, right?
Do you think that's true, Ala? Go to you on this. Do you reckon recruiters will end up? I mean, have you received instruction from any hiring managers to say, you know what, when you're hiring for technical people, I want you now to also examine their aptitude or interest in generative AI? Has that happened yet, or do you anticipate it happening at some point?
I think we have a little bit of different, let's say, interest on the hiring managers to make sure that candidates are not using generative AI. Oops, I'm back. Yeah. So basically, the hiring managers, they're more concerned, like if candidates are using the generative AI to cheat on something, like to pass the test or to do something that they're not supposed to do or know, etc. It's not a requirement yet. I haven't seen like where I am hanging out, but I saw in some job descriptions experience with ChatGPT prompts, and it's also very interesting that it's becoming kind of a requirement for some jobs, and some candidates receiving the tests to show how to do the prompts, and not only for like developers, but also for recruiters as well. Like if you're efficient in doing the prompts.
Yeah, I think it'll be similar to the digitization wave, 15, 20 years ago, where, people were just looking for, we need to digitize our companies. People are going to hire everyone who's coming in needs to have some sort of digital, interest, because that's the quickest way we can do cultural change. I think AI will be the same. So you're going to have everyone who basically doesn't know too much about AI is going to say, let's just hire people. We think they know something about it. So it'll bleed into the requirement, even though it may not be directly obvious how AI might be applied to the job function. That will be one way in which organizations, I think, will try and skill up. You mentioned something really interesting. And this, philosophically, this is actually quite a difficult thing. Like, at what point does AI enablement becomes cheating? So I have a candidate, call it without AI, is this type of person. But you know what? They actually live in AI all the time. They're using tools or whatever. Comes in and produces this type of output. Amazing, great stuff. Do we assess the entire? Do we kind of assess the entire thing? Do we expand the frame of our assessment beyond just the human being and say human being plus all the AI tools they're using? Or do we think, you know what? No, because that person's using tools in Joshua's situation. Maybe they can't be using those tools in certain contexts. We still need the core skill set. So how have you guys thought about this? Like, what is at what point are we comfortable with the usage of the tooling, and at what point do we think, no, you're cheating on this, we're not getting the real assessment of your capability? Thoughts on this? Let's go to you, Joshua.
Yeah, I think I have thought about this quite a lot, and I really think it depends on the context and the job role. So for certain jobs, it's just fundamental that you can come in and get the job done. And I would be happy for you to use whatever tools during the application process that you would also have access to in the job. And in some companies, there isn't a restriction on what you could use, so it's no problem. I used to work for Red Hat in the training and certification group, and we had to certify people that they could achieve a certain level of performance at certain tasks. And the way that we did it is we had them actually perform the tasks, and we just, with a time limit. Because we said, okay, a competent professional should be able to complete this work within 2 hours. And they come in under the supervision of a proctor, but they're given internet access. They're given, whatever they might choose to use. And then the question is, can they really do it? And we're not testing, did they do it the way I would do it? But we're just testing, did they do it in an effective way? And that's fine. I think that, so for me, I'm not too concerned about it, but it does mean that we really have to be thoughtful about how we screen people and how we test them.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
You have to create a situation where you cannot solve it by just, pasting the question into ChatGPT and then pasting the answer into the application, right? Because that is not, you haven't done much. I would just add that for me, the fundamental aspect of software engineering is not learning a language and writing code. The fundamental aspect is fully understanding the problem and being able to break it down into steps that a computer can execute, which can be expressed in the language that you're meant to be using, which is very different if you think about it. And
yeah,
this is where you see the true, senior professionals from folks who are great at using tools, but can hit many walls because if they don't understand what they're committing. And the general journey through software engineering career is everyone starts junior, everyone starts not really understanding and then growing and gaining. And we all start with copying and pasting or looking at other examples. And at some point you realize that the level of the public code on the internet really varies in quality. And you may get a full implementation of what you need to do. And as you start reworking through it and trying to understand it, a light goes on. You realize the person that wrote this code did not understand fully what they were doing. And once you that light goes on, you could cut half of it away, or you can simplify it, or you can make it 10 times more performant, whatever, because you do fully understand it. And so what I'm looking to do is, go ahead, use ChatGPT to generate that code, but you're going to need to show me that you understand every line of it if you're going to pass this interview.
Yeah, very interesting.
I agree. I think it reduces down to like the core principles and the core qualities you're looking for in the ideal candidate. I think they stay the same. I think it makes assessment a bit more difficult. And I think assessment to some degree needs to become a bit more abstract, right? Because the language is not anymore a barrier. maybe for many years in software engineering, knowing a particular language has been a barrier to entry. And I think now, as Joshua said, like if you're capable of reducing this, like whatever question or task you're set to do in a couple of basic principles that you need to solve, then the AI tools can help you with the rest, right? But it's gonna make assessment a lot more difficult, I think, and maybe a lot of tooling that exists today is just not gonna add a lot of value in the future, right? Like some of the pre-screening tests, I would argue that they probably add zero to little value in today's context. So that's probably gonna have to change to some degree.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think this is not sort of isolated software engineering assessment either. It's like any kind of asynchronous testing cannot really be trusted, right? Because we don't know how that was actually produced. Even these days with synchronous, you know, we've seen sort of the cool little hacks where, you know, there's a voice to text transcription and a teleprompter coming out, and it's like, okay, you can't even trust a Zoom call because the person might actually be basically be fed the lines to push out, and it's like, how can you make the assessment then? So it may well be it goes back to the Red Hat type of approach, Joshua. It's actually an in-person assessment. So in fact, we might need to do a lot more of the old school assessing, which means a lot more effort and work, but it's kind of the effort's been shoved this way where it may have been saved in the production aspect of it. So we produce more code, but when we're assessing people and candidates, we actually have to do a little bit more work than perhaps we did pre generative AI. Okay, we need to move really quickly on because we want to bring some of our other guests on here. But let's, before we leave Joshua and Serban from the show, let's ask the final question, which is how do you see the work of software engineering changing, and is there going to be any shuffling of the skills that or traits that you would look for in a software engineer in an AI assisted world? Let's imagine, project forward, AI is going to be ubiquitous. People are going to use it because of the productivity gains. Does that actually then change the sort of people that we might be looking to hire? I would compare this similarly to, okay, let's imagine you're hiring for a sprinter. You know, you'd hire someone who's really good with calf muscles that look like this. Suddenly you invent like a bicycle. You would still need an athlete, but you might actually look for a slightly different profile of athlete, given the fact you now have a different type of vehicle to help you go faster. Any thoughts on this, guys? Again, let's go with you to kick off, Joshua.
Yeah, I actually think that it's going to cause a split. And what that's going to be is there are some jobs that really the entire job is writing very standard code. Maybe you work at, you know, a bank and they have a huge system and you get tickets that say you need to deliver an average of this number, or you need to do that or whatever. These are jobs where someone who understands prompting really well and understands quality assurance can do very well at, because the models have great examples to learn from. So they're very able to produce this kind of code quickly, accurately, no problem. You're going to see, I think, this split where the upper level of the job is going to be a lot more demanding, and it's going to be more about people who really have a broad and deep set of skills. You know, the elite people that we see now are going to be more in demand because they're going to be the ones who maybe they're leveraging something like ChatGPT, maybe not, but they're solving the novel problems, the innovative challenges. These tools are never going to solve those kind of problems for you, at least not in the foreseeable future. And I also just think that what we're seeing today is sort of the first attempt at these tools, but I think it's going to dramatically change in the next 3 to 5 years, in the same way that you might think, you know, if you bought a Model T Ford, first mass-produced car, but if you didn't have a toolkit with you when you went out on a road trip and you didn't know how to fix it up when something went wrong, or you just need to adjust a spark plug, or the carburetor is a little jammed, you weren't going out for the drive. Right now, we have cars that can pretty much drive themselves. And so that dramatically changes your interaction with the technology. In the same way, though, the jobs for the people who really get hands deep into it are not going to go away. I think they're going to be more specialized. So I think you're really going to see kind of a stratification. You're going to have roles where, you know, basically AI jockey is the job rather than software engineer. And then you're going to have really hardcore jobs that you need people who are deep into software engineering. If it's all right with you, I would like to offer a discount to your audience, but I wanted to ask you first just on the product we offer.
Hey, listen, absolutely. I mean, I'm all for freebies and cheap stuff, Joshua. So if you have anything you want to say, go ahead and say it, man.
Cool. Well, the link I posted earlier, and I'll post again, is Sharpest Spark, which is our product for individuals. And if anybody would like to try it out, simply, and I'll put it in the chat, Joshua 10 in all caps will get you 10% off. And the other thing I would like to extend, as I know recruiters talk to a lot of HR personnel, if you're interested in getting a referral bonus for referring our product, please send me an email, joshua@sharpest.com, and I'll get you your own code, and we set you up with free coaching as a reward for any referrals.
Amazing. Thank you very much. And by the way, folks, as a standard policy, I'm like totally up for like getting like cheaper stuff from people. So if any vendors out there want to chuck some stuff at the audience, let me know. I'm generally good with it. Okay, let's go with you with the same question, Serban. Let's say you're hiring for people in a future company or a new team or whatever. Has your mindset changed now when AI's arrived? Are you now starting, you know what, I definitely want someone with this approach rather than that approach?
I think, as Joshua said, that like what Joshua said resonates a lot with me. I think the easy tasks are getting even easier, right? So you either are very specialized, and I think the folks that are very specialized are probably going to add even more value in the future, because arguably the workforce is going to move elsewhere. And I can see that from the perspective of the software that I do, which is sort of like system software, something that's very specialized, something where Red Hat does a lot of work, and there are fewer and fewer of those engineers. So I think that's going to be a very valuable skill set in the future. But more importantly, I think because we're going through this rapid evolution, and I think what we're seeing today is going to be significantly different to what we're going to see in 5 years from now. Just being naturally curious and naturally willing to take on new things and to challenge some of the things you're doing today, I think that's sort of like the attitude that we're looking for the most. Like the folks that are naturally curious, the folks that are willing to challenge some of the we call it the toothbrush test, right? Like, why do you need to brush in the same way we've done it for years? Maybe there's a better way. Right?
There is a better way, by the way. You shouldn't spit out your toothpaste after you've brushed your teeth. Like, never rinse. That's a mistake. You simply go to sleep with your toothpaste in your mouth.
You see.
So yeah, that's you know, unconventional, but it's true. Okay, great stuff, guys. Listen, we have to move on. We're gonna get you guys back for a future show, I'm sure. This is a fascinating conversation. We need to learn more about this world that is being built ahead of us. So Joshua Hoffman, great to see you, sir. Hopefully we'll catch up soon. And Serban, wonderful to see you. We'll catch up soon, man.
Thank you. While you're taking new people on the screen, can I show just a few AIs that I've been recently using that's as a recruiter you kind of can benefit or later?
What do you reckon, guys? You want to see Ala demonstrate some AI tools? You let me know in the comments. I'm gonna leave it up to you. See how excited you are about this.
Now we do it this way, right? So, okay, dear audience, would you like to see a few tools that I've been playing with?
Yeah, you need to comment, guys, because you know it's going to be up to the public vote here. Let me have a look. Oh, we've got no takers, Ala, I'm afraid. Oh, we have some people saying yes. I was going to say, of course we have yeses. All right, Ivan and Oleg, we're going to bring you on in a bit, okay? But we have to have Ala do some demos here, it looks like.
It's just super quickly. Yeah, you see a lot of yeses, yeah.
We've got one no. Michael, thank you for being a person prepared to speak against the crowd. But we're going to see this real quick, okay? Go ahead.
Yeah. So do you see the screen?
Yep.
So basically, it's one of the really fun AIs that I recently learned from software engineers. How do I get to know which, let's say, sorry, where's the link? which AIs are popular right now and software engineers are using. I'm subscribed for the tool on to read. I'm going to drop the link for the newsletters, and they're giving you all the new AIs that are really, really right now. 4 minutes read, 1 minute read. It really gives the idea of what is going on in the market. So basically, this one is really fun. So it uses the AI, and you can generate the mind maps. That's you can like adjust yourself, but just look for the results. For example, what are the AI tools that could be used for recruiters? I just click on this magic button and it started to pop up. So you can really improve it yourself. You can do whatever you like, but it's generated for you. And some of them I actually recognize and I used them before. And every time, like when I like really thinking, how could I make my life a little bit easier? So this tool proves that. For example, what type of automations from Airtable I can use, and this is like really boom, 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 making the list. So it could be really helpful just for like making the first list and adjusting things, like super, super nice. And another one.
Hang on, that's really cool. So it's basically like a Miro with a chat interface, and essentially I can ask it whatever I can prompt it to do something, and it will actually generate you a mind map. I mean, that's awesome.
So you can
Very,
ask
very
the
awesome.
scraping tools, like how to clean the data, etc. So it's used the like the ChatGPT insights, and it's just like helping you to really you can make the whole presentation out of it. And this is very fun for me because it's really saving a lot of time. And I asked like what tools I can use for GitHub to find the email addresses, and it's immediately generate to me things. And I, oh my god, I forgot about Snovio, and it has a free version. That's also important to show the tools that have free versions, because it's also like I don't know how we're going to pay for everything right now. So I'm subscribed for so many things. Yeah, it's whimsical.com. It's free for some 3 boards. That's more than enough, and it's shareable, and it's very, very fun. So really, and for those who are really try to understand like what is going on with their productivity, and or they're preparing some kind of tutorials, this tool scribe.com is really scribe.com is basically recording your computer. So you click on the capturing, and for example, you're doing the patch on GitHub, or you're sourcing for the candidates, and then it's giving you like the whole screenshots with highlighted things where you spend the time, and so it can be like nice tutorial step by step. So if you're creating some kind of tutorials for your team, it's really amazing. And the last one, also free, called Engage AI, super fun. It's helping you to write down the nice comments on LinkedIn posts, and I think that's a lot of us like commenting right now a lot on LinkedIn. So it could also automate for you some of the work. Yeah, so nothing bad in using the AI, but definitely is still you add a little bit for personalization, you add a little bit of your thoughts, you have to correct things as well, but it's really saving you time on some basic searching, and yeah, so when you want to prep materials.
Yeah, the Engage AI, I think it will be particularly useful for actually responding to maybe comments from your own post. I wonder, because and oftentimes the response, I mean, if it evolves to that level, it would be really good, because oftentimes responses are standard. Like your responses to other people's responses are sometimes even more standard than their original comment, and that's still typing time. So I wonder whether that may actually be a future way in which that works. Anyway, folks, really fantastic to see those tools. It might actually, someone should be doing a show on this. If you're out there wondering what to do as a podcast or a live stream, why don't you do like a weekly show highlighting 3 like technologies that are useful? People will watch that. Okay, let's keep going. We're going to bring on Oleg and Ivan. Thank you so much for being patient, guys. Let's see. These guys both techies, but basically a little bit more on the recruiting side also. So this is going to be a really good kind of like bridge back into the recruiting world. Oh, folks, by the way, I totally forgot to do this, but we can't forget to do this. We have to come off air at some point, obviously. But it's important for Brainfood Live is a show that continues the conversation, doesn't ever become a bottleneck, so the conversation stops. So why don't everyone just take a moment and stick your LinkedIn URL into the chat stream on Crowdcast if you're watching it here, or if you're watching it on any of the LinkedIns out there. There's about a dozen people broadcasting this show, by the way, the most we've ever had. Take your LinkedIn URL and put it into the comment thread where you're watching it, and then make sure you just connect with everyone else who you see do likewise. Worst case scenario, you're going to walk away with 50 new connections that care about this topic. And then go ahead and just have this conversation offline, or if you want, do your own broadcast and do your own conversation. All good. Make sure that you're thoroughly connected in this crazy world that we have. Okay, as we're all doing that, that's fantastic. Let's say hello to our friends. Thanks for being patient, by the way, you two. Let's go with you first, Ivan. Lovely shirt, by the way. I love the canary yellow. One of my favorite colors. Can you introduce yourself? Who are you? What is you do? You're on mute, by the way.
Yes, so we know each other, I think, since 2016. I appreciate the compliment. I can try to vary it any time now. So basically, I do recruitment since over 8 years, right, Hong? We know each other a long time. And for the most time, I do IT recruitment in Switzerland and build tools around it, and also write content on LinkedIn and Twitter about recruitment stuff that actually works. Sometimes a little bit controversial, but most of the time, I try to be very practical.
Just sometimes controversial. Okay, follow Ivan on Twitter if you want a few laughs. But you gotta, you gotta like your mustard, basically, because he's gonna give it to you properly. Okay. By the way, Ivan, as a quick segue, Ivan bore witness to the very first attempt at an automated recruiter, which is the hackathon team that I actually represented and somehow came second. I still can't get over it. It was clearly the best product. Complete disgrace that we didn't win that competition. Anyway, let's introduce Oleg. Oleg, great to see you, sir. Wonderful to have some time with you and the rest of the crew in Barcelona. So great to see you online. Quickly introduce yourself. Who are you? What it is you do?
Sure. So I'm running a company called ToughBite, and we're a recruitment agency that's trying to build a tech recruitment platform. So in addition to having like a team over 30 recruiters, we also have 10 developers, and I'm kind of in charge of the product side of things. So I'm actually kind of using these AI tools that we're talking about today.
Yeah, this is why I wanted you two on screen together, because I think you both kind of bridged the recruiting side with the technology side, and it kind of takes us into the recruiting world very nicely. So the premise of the conversation was really, look, do we think that AI is going to change the activity of software engineering? I think broadly thinking, we think it will. In which case, okay, what will engineers be doing, and what skills or traits are going to be more important for those folks? And then, of course, how does that translate to what we need to be thinking about when we're hiring these people? So let's talk about the sort of skills you think will be reshuffled, if you like, for a software engineer. Firstly, Oleg, I wonder whether you could tell us, like, in your team of developers, can you see any like differences in terms of the people that have adopted AI compared to the people that haven't? I mean, how do you read it as a manager, CEO of a group of developers?
Yeah, so I think only 1 or 2 developers out of our team of 10 are like actively using Copilot. So yeah, there's certainly a bit of apprehension, especially among the more experienced developers, to try it out, because I think like one of the earlier speakers was saying that, they feel that, the output it gives can't be relied on, and they feel like they can do a better job. So, they're not using it as much as I think they perhaps should be. But in general, yeah, it's an interesting situation within our team, and that I feel like more of the developers in our team should be using it. So like I'm constantly trying to like educate more and kind of nudge people towards using these tools more and more in their day-to-day work.
Why do you want them to use it more?
Well, because I'm hoping that by using it more, they'll be more productive, and hence they'll be able to get stuff done faster. But or then they'll have more free time during the day, and hence won't be as stressed out.
Yeah, and by the way, very interesting, isn't there a pattern here where the more experienced people are more resistant towards using technologies of this type? There's actually been some studies outside of the world of software engineering, which has kind of provided further evidence to that case, where GPTs and AI is most valuable to the least skilled. Because they basically, it gets them to a level faster when they don't have, I mean, a very good example of this is language. Like, for instance, someone who is not a native language speaker in language A can use GPT to immediately produce copy that is a native of that language and then use it. Whereas someone who's already at that native level perhaps doesn't see the same value. So it's really going to help people with less skill, less experience, not so much with the senior folks, or maybe a percentage of that is also reticence due to fear.
I'm not really sure I agree with that completely, though. So I think so I've spoken to senior developers like elsewhere, not working at our company, and what I see is that for example, if you're a senior developer who's more of a generalist, and let's say you've worked in one programming language, and all of a sudden, for whatever reason, you need to start a project in another programming language, actually in those scenarios, these tools are actually extremely helpful because like the basics of programming, how systems work, about APIs and so on. So just like translating that to a different language without knowing the standard library that the language has and so on, it becomes a lot easier all of a sudden. So, even though I agree that the more senior developers are like more reluctant to adopt this technology, I actually feel that it would benefit them more. And actually, the juniors are ones that where the initial benefit seems quite high, but the actual practical applications of AI are rather limited. And the reason is that as a junior, you sort of developer, you don't know what you don't know. And hence there's this sort of temptation to just, take whatever, GPT and these other tools give you as value and just copy paste it in. And if it gives you the right results in a certain context, not really try and dig deeper, understand why is it giving these answers that it does. And hence the code you'll produce will actually be worse, and that'll come to bite you back sort of later. So I think that juniors, not all juniors are going to benefit from AI necessarily. Some could actually make it more difficult, make things more difficult for themselves.
The more times people talk on this show, the more obvious that we are starting to uncover some quite fundamental relationships we have with technology. And one theory is that technology is fundamentally a de-skilling of a human activity or human skill. It replicates the skill, or replicates the output that you would previously require a lot of skill to use. Therefore, you become dependent on it. Therefore, you will actually lose the skill over time. Similar, I think Joshua was mentioning, the idea of being a mechanic in a car. Back in the day when the Ford T first rolled out, probably you needed to have lots of mechanical skills in order to functionally operate the vehicle. These days, the thing drives itself. Like, you don't need any skill. You just need a lot of money. You sit in the car and instruct it to go someplace. So we kind of got to get used to the idea that perhaps we're going to move into a world where a lot of the things that we previously valued and thought were skillful and we treasured building those skills, it ends up being the case that actually AI will replace the need to develop the skills in the first place. It's a process of de-skilling, which carries its own sort of dangers. Ivan, let's go to you. You're still coding, actually, as I understand. You're still building stuff, right? So tell me about how you're interacting with GPTs at all. I mean, how are you using this?
Yeah, so basically, probably everyone has wrote a tweet with it or tried to correct the tweet. Me including. Sometimes the result is good. Sometimes it takes more work to actually correct the output of ChatGPT than write it from scratch. And with programming, it's pretty similar, right? With like any technology, it's basically like that. My prior boss, when I was still employed as a programmer, he would not use a technology which is called the 10-finger system, which makes you type, of course, super fast, right? He would use literally 2 fingers. However, out of 50 people, he still was the best programmer, the most productive one, the most creative one, basically the one with the biggest output, and I'm quite sure, the biggest return on investment in this specific company. So we see that like tech, which is, you know, sometimes super obvious. And when I was working there, I was like his subordinate, right? But I told him like after like, I don't know, 2 weeks working there, I'm like, hey, Marcel, like use 10 fingers, you'll type faster, right? And he refused. So, you know, some things, they are just, you know, coding is so complicated and you have like a million things that matter. That, well, you won't be surprised, right? And before Joshua said that like the real skill, right, is really breaking down problems and then making a machine solve them. So this is the actual skill, right? And this is definitely what you learn in the first term in introduction to computer science in any university. And this is what Joshua, who is like having 30 years of experience in coding, says also. So my Twitter is actually not meant to be controversial, but like going to the fundamentals, right? And coding here also, you have to like, you know, these things could make you forget about the fundamentals. And I'm a bit scared that like junior developers, they might, you know, never then be, you know, pushed to this, that you have to really like understand how things are and not just, you know, copy paste something, right?
How important is that? I mean, this is similar to mathematics and calculators, I feel, whereby prior to the existence of a calculator, lots of us had like really good arithmetic skills, really probably much more fluent understanding of basic operations without the use of a device. Now we have the device, we kind of forgotten about it, but we kind of, it's kind of, the wheel's still spinning, right? Are we not going to have the same situation with software? Like, are we just clinging on to stuff because we fear losing it, even though we've potentially got evidence where we have lost skills and it's generally been fine?
I mean, a designer recently told me that, for example, they do very like print design. It's very like out of trend, but there are like companies that just do print, right? And this is a founder of such a company. She has like 4 people, and she's like, yes, you know what? This AI stuff, it removes the manual work to make like a shadow go away or to put some glasses on someone. And yeah, that's a real like fear of this, right? So like this, you know, mechanic work goes away. But then I was like, okay, but can't you then, you know, focus more on the customer's needs and then do more strategic stuff? I think this is really the core truth here, right? Because a mathematician is also not defined by the ability to say 2 + 2 × 300. Like, it's not the skill of a mathematician, you know? The skill of a mathematician is creativity, like come up with proofs.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Ala, I wonder whether you got any thoughts on this. The idea of AI or any kind of form of technology becoming so useful that it does, in fact, replace not only the function, but also the idea that you need to learn the skill. Like we'll end up not being as good simply because this thing can do it for us. How do you feel about that? Do you think it's okay, or do you think actually no, we really need to learn the fundamentals here?
I think for us, let's say for recruiters and for sourcers, these technologies are complementary. So by not knowing some of the basics how these technologies were created, we still can benefit a lot from them. In a way, I also like totally support that fundamentals. We need to understand how things are done and so how they're connected with each other, why we have frameworks, why we have cloud technologies, these kind of things. But AIs, in a way, so what I've noticed, in recruitment, please correct me if I'm wrong, when it just appeared, I thought it's going to solve a lot of problems and it's going to be used for everything. But it's very different with software engineers. I think they have a very precise scenarios when they use it and they're very skeptical. You know, ChatGPT is not going to replace developers because it's still like a very junior, it's very baggy and it's hallucinating a little bit. But in recruitment, it was, oh my God, it's so exciting. It's going to be really replacing things. And I've heard so many times that resourcing is going to be automated and completely replaced by AI. I'm waiting for this day. I will be very happy. So because it's going to free me from something else. I see everyone wants to jump in. So please go ahead. Go ahead.
No, yeah, because the topic recruitment, right? I think AI is great. It removes a lot of bullshit completely. I had just recently a new prospect. They are like, yes, and your candidate needs to send a cover letter alongside to this 400 other things. And it's like this automated coding test. It's the same category of stuff where we always knew this is bullshit. The cover letters, they are all complete the same, sound the same, I want to work here because you look like a good company. And now companies can't ask for this stuff because they know this will be like written by ChatGPT. So this is amazing. Like this hopefully will go away. And if you're like a recruiting consultant, then you can say the hiring manager, who's a little bit weird, because how can you ask for this stuff? I mean, really, it's annoying. You can just tell them, hey, the candidate will anyway write this with ChatGPT. How about we not ask this? Or stupid coding task that the person has to do like in 4 hours in their free time for free. You can just say, hey, like, don't do this, right? So don't ask this stuff.
Stop press. Yeah, I've just got to interrupt, Ivan, because you've just introduced an idea that's really, really powerful. And I want to make sure that I understood it correctly, but also people kind of underline this as well. Like maybe in terms of assessment, Joshua mentioned it earlier, and Serban also, like our assessment's going to change. One of the ways in which we must evolve our assessments is we've got to ask questions that cannot be adequately answered by GPTs. Because if it can, maybe that's not a great question to ask, because essentially a generic response will suffice, or an industry standard response will suffice, and that doesn't really tell us what we want to know about this person. So have a think. We probably need to refresh, even at interviews, we probably need to refresh kind of the sort of questions we like to ask people. Okay, let's focus about sort of the sort of skills that you think a software engineer will become more important in an AI-enabled world. So let's imagine that AI becomes ubiquitous. I think the production of code, a great deal of it seems to be AI generated. Again, you look at Copilot stats, 46% of code on GitHub was generated by Copilot, I think in February 2022. Only about 3 months later, it went up to something like 47%. What it is now, who knows? Probably 60 plus. So let's imagine a world where the actual production of code, whether respective, whether it's good or bad, the actual production of code becomes more dominated by AI generated code. How does the skill of a software engineer change? What are your thoughts on this, Oleg?
Right. So to kind of connect this to the earlier discussion, and then something that Joshua said as well, I think developers always have to like learn new stuff. It depends on which sort of type of development that you do. For example, if you do front-end development, you have to learn a new framework like every 6 months. If you're doing enterprise development, maybe the rate of progress is a bit slower there. But I think that that ability to learn is going to become increasingly more important going forward. And also like the element of curiosity that Joshua mentioned is also going to be more important, because that will allow you to sort of apply your skills to multiple different types of problems. And hence, I think actually like there'll be more demand for generalists in general, because a generalist who kind of has a good understanding of how the full stack works, knows where technology can and should be applied, will just be able to do a lot more with the help of these tools. That is not to say that specialists won't be needed, but I think like people that specialize, say, in only one programming language, they'll have a hard time, because like a generalist, as I said earlier, could easily pick up that language very quickly. I mean, a specialist that knows something very specific, like that very few people know, obviously will still be valuable. But I think that we'll just have more generalists, and it'll be harder to be a specialist going forward. And then also, I think another thing that'll sort of be important is like sort of communication and social skills, because at the end of the day, software development, most of the time, you're not sort of working in a vacuum. You're trying to solve some sort of a business problem, and understanding what that actual problem is. Being able to do that, being able to extract the requirements is going to become more and more important. So that you're not sort of writing code for the sake of writing code, but rather writing it to solve the actual problem. And I think we're still a long way from like AI being able to sort of do that. And there's memes going around as well saying that, I can't remember exactly the text, but, in order for AI, to take our jobs, it'll have to understand what our customers actually want. So that's not likely to happen anytime soon, because oftentimes the people with like the business problem aren't able to sort of articulate the problem themselves in their own head properly.
That's a very real problem. The ability to understand the problem, there is a need. They don't quite understand what it is, and I say they, but this includes recruiters often, because we're often buyers of stuff and we don't quite, there's a pressing need, we can't express it. So we don't know what we don't know, and that's not going to be solved by anything because the AI doesn't know. And in fact, when we do know, a lot of that knowledge is actually not documented, and of course all of the information that AIs are trained on is documented data. So it's undocumented data that human beings have always got an advantage on, and when we interact in person or we interact in some way to exchange to get a deep understanding what that problem is, great deal of it is reading in between the lines, folks. Recruiters know this very well. When you're speaking to a candidate, you're not just like listening to the words, you're listening to what's behind the words. Why is he or she saying these things? Oh, it's that reason that they're not comfortable to share right now, but it's your kind of intuition that tells you, you know what, you got to probe a little more to understand this scenario. Again, none of that is it's not AI-able because it's not documented. So I think there is where I think we're starting to see the contours of this future where human beings need to lean towards. And it's towards sort of the areas where lots of information is exchanged, but in an informal and often intangible, non-documented way. That's where we call it intuition, but that's really just an outcome of unconscious information processing, right? If you look at what intuition is, it's because we've processed information somewhere, we just haven't put it in our conscious brain to do the processing. So even we may not be that conscious of the fact we've processed that information, but the intuition tells us, hey, I need to check up on this candidate because you know what, usually there's a reason why I feel uncomfortable with this. I'm putting an extra call to this guy. Okay. What about the sort of skills we need to be hiring for as a software engineer? It looks like curiosity was one of the things that everyone's been mentioning, like the openness for new. Is there anything else that you think is going to be relevant for the future requirements? Let's project forward 2-3 years down the line. What are CTOs going to be asking tech recruiters to look for? Thoughts on this, Ivan, and Ala, feel free to contribute to this as well as you, Oleg. But let's listen to Ivan first.
So Joshua said there is this prediction of his that you have the legacy banking stuff, this will go away, and then you have the cool innovative stuff. This will always be needed, such skilled creative people. I do agree that in banking you have a lot of scripts or simple if-else statements, while loops. This is all true. But a little bit I disagree. I allow myself to disagree with this super experienced man in the sense that there is a lot in banks or this old legacy tech. Yeah, you have a lot of tacit knowledge, right? So you have, as you said, undocumented data. You have a lot of things where you can't really, and of course it's not open source, right? It's you can't have the big algorithms, OpenAI, work on it. There's anyway a problem. But you have these people who know a million things. They work in this bank for 30 years. And for them, yes, they put if else somewhere, but they need the 30 years working there to be able to put this, right? So this is really hard stuff. So my feeling is this will stay there for some time. So legacy and this boring stuff, it's actually quite, you need to know a lot of stuff. And the cool stuff this open source, yeah, this gets easier and easier. 20 years ago, you would not use, or even more, I think, you would not use Java, you would use C++, and there you needed to take care of pointers, you would have to take care of a lot of details, not contributing to the business. But now, software development, it abstracts away so much stuff, automates everything that you can more and more focus on the business. And this is definitely a skill, right? Really the skill, what does business need? And what do we need to do to get value out of this, right? And then to apply the fundamentals, this breaking down and then rewriting the code that solves the problem, right? This is the, because this is, I try to communicate on Twitter this, right? That you have some skills, they are not gonna change, and you need those. And to work on those, it's really, really hard, and you need 30 years for that. So, yeah, this would be my conclusion, right?
just to add a few thoughts to that. I think the skill that was always important, but it's going to be important right now, is adaptability. So we need to adapt and really exploit the technologies that are given to us. So not to be afraid, not to be any attached emotionally to it. It's a technology, so it's created by other people to solve some kind of problem. So definitely adaptability will be one of those. And I think in tech recruitment, specifically, analyzing data and making sense out of this is going to be important skill. So we all kind of will be a little bit data analytics, data scientists in a way to keep up with the all the changes that are happening. So that would be two skills that I will add to the recruitment bucket.
No, very, very interesting observations. Oleg, final word to you, man. I mean, what do you think about the future skills, if you like, that are going to be top priority as a hirer of engineers, right? You're going to be a person that's recruiting these people to your team. Okay, great. What you be looking for that you can add to what Ivan and Ala has said?
Yeah, so maybe to sort of continue from what was already discussed, I think understanding the business problem. So having, I guess, a so-called product mindset will become increasingly important. Sort of, as Ivan said, there's a lot of stuff out there nowadays. So oftentimes, and it's said among developers that the most reliable code that you write is the code you never write. So like knowing which existing solutions to use and when to use off-the-shelf solutions or third-party APIs or libraries rather than actually writing it. I mean, that'll be important. But also another thing that I think will be important, given that it seems that the future we're heading towards is becoming less and less certain, is the ability to sort of experiment and have a kind of experimentation mindset, whereby you don't make any assumptions about whether even the problem you're solving is a valid problem, but the way you approach the software development is by sort of building some sort of a MVP, small thing you test, and then getting it out there quickly to then see if it sticks, if people use it the way you thought they would, and so on.
Yeah, very interesting. You know what? From the conversations we've had today, it seems like, if we pulled out all of the top priorities or skills or traits that we would look for the future engineer, they actually look very similar, I think, to the current engineer. That's the optimal engineer that we're looking for. It is about curiosity, problem solving, business acumen, understanding of the wider problem, not just the technical focus, adaptability, the ability to kind of not be wedded on one solution. So it could well be that this is a pattern for what we're looking for. It's not a revolution per se in terms of the type of person that will succeed in software engineering. Even if the production of software does become a revolutionary change, it seems that the people that were elite today will probably still be the elite people tomorrow.
What's scary, I think, is that with these tools, I think the idea of the mythical 10x developer, or maybe even 100x developer, will actually become true. So by using AI, the good developers that understand the business problems and so on will just become better, faster, more efficient, and so on. So that's kind of something that's potentially a little bit scary in the future that we're facing.
Certainly, I think there will be extraordinary developers that can go to the level that perhaps we've never seen before. I think we've already seen some evidence of this already, where there's certain solo indie hackers that are around that basically can produce multi-million-dollar businesses using technology and producing technology products, pretty lo-fi, B2C stuff. But one person, as a software engineer, no sales, no marketing, no nothing, can actually produce a very, very profitable business. We'll probably see more of that. And in fact, as a wider topic, you see a lot of people perhaps becoming disillusioned with the VC-backed tech world emerging into the market. I think a lot of those folks will either get jobs if they wanted them, but I dare say a fair few would also be thinking, you know what, with all of this tooling available now, maybe it's time for me to build something else and go off my own sort of basis. So we should see lots more technology startups opening up. they'll just look like different startups, because suddenly they're going to be one person bands, or they're going to be 3 people doing it, whereas previously they may have thought about building a team of 10, 50 people to do it. Okay, folks, we're well over time, so we have to close it off there. Thank you so much to our guests. Oleg, you have a good day, sir. You should be on holiday after today, I believe.
In fact, I am already. I don't know if you can see outside, but I'm by a lake here. So
you are obviously not in Helsinki, so yes. Enjoy your holiday. Thanks for spending some of your holiday with us, Oleg. Let's catch up when you're back at the ranch, but do chill out for the next 4 weeks or so. And Ivan, wonderful to see you as always. Let's keep talking. We'll chat soon, okay?
Thanks.
Good stuff. Okay, guys, we have to let it go. Ala, thank you for hanging on so long. I know you've got busy stuff to go, but we've already
No worries, Ilhan. I forgot to show one more tool. Will you allow me to do that, or you would like to share to close the show? I can put it.
What do you want me to do? Obviously, I've got to allow you to do it. I'm too much of a soft touch. Go on, very quickly. There's only 50 people watching it right now. But
50, it's great. I love 50 is great. So this is the only people who are going to get the link.
But you know what this is? This is like the the after the Marvel movies, there's always after the credits, there's always extra
exactly.
scene.
Who left? So
This
they
is
are
the
missing
extra
out.
Okay, let's
So
have a look.
basically this is the AI that creates some presentations for you. So if you have a meeting and you need to like have some kind of a little bit of generic, but some good slides before you need to go. So this is the tool for you. It could create the web page. It could be presentation of the document. So you use the topic. So for example, make a presentation about how recruiters can use ChatGPT. So it's going to be very, very something generic. I just put it on now, and it's making suggestions. So I can change it. But yeah, what is ChatGPT? Advantages: using for screening, using for interviewing, using for candidate engagement, using for blah blah blah. So continue. It's I will use surprise me. So you can use any of the good. It's okay. So sorry, I don't. So let me choose this one. Continue. So now it's going to create the whole presentation. This is my hand. Advantages of using. So call effectiveness, blah blah blah, data, screening questions, implementing ChatGPT for interviews, time. So if you need to go for the meeting and you really have nothing, so it's so for you. And I think it's gonna bullshit your way in some kind of things.
Oh my
Easter
God.
eggs, yeah.
Oh my God.
So now it's good.
I want to say yes to every invitation I have to do a talk, and just use this at last minute. Literally, was it Gamma app? Gamma.app. That's crazy. That's crazy how it's
I'm gonna
actually
share
populated
the link. It's and I can change the team. If I didn't like it, I would be okay. So now I have 2 minutes before the meeting, so I'm gonna play with it a little bit. So I can replace things, and it's free. Actually, it's free. So you can get credits by inviting people. So that's what I will do. I will share my link, so maybe people will
share the
follow.
link. I actually want this because I think that will definitely it'll definitely change. I mean, I was actually surprised at that slide. If you go up just a little bit.
Sorry, I'll go back.
Yeah, real quick. The timeline piece, or the one where you actually drew it out. This one here, I was surprised at this display, because I thought, okay, great, it's just putting out text and image, text and image, text and image. But then it actually goes out and starts breaking it down into some sort of timeline, even though it's not particularly a timeline. It's just a display idea that is really quite cool. And in fact, if you were to try and do this on Canva, let's say, you'd be drag and drop type stuff for ages. That'll take you like 20 minutes to put that thing together. So yeah, amazing.
10 seconds, it was done. So really, like if you have just 2 minutes before the meeting, so it's using ChatGPT to generate the slides, the ideas. So let me drop the link so that people can use it. But yeah, I forgot to show it. So it saved me so much time.
Ala, you're going to have to do your own show. That's it. No more invitations to Brainfood Live. You're gonna do your own show, and you're gonna do basic demos of this type of stuff. Everyone will watch it. Like everyone will watch it. I guarantee you. All right,
Only
listen,
if you promise to visit. Yeah.
I gotta let you go. We'll catch up in Berlin in a couple of weeks, right? So I'll look forward to seeing you there. By the way, folks, thanks for watching. We'll be back next week. We're going to be talking about demographics. Demographic crisis is a big, high-level economics topic, but is it the reason why there is a persistent candidate shortage, despite the fact half of Europe is in recession? Maybe there's just simply not enough people to do the types of work that need to be done. And perhaps that's because we're not producing enough people. We've got some amazing guests here. Kevin Wheeler's joining us. Letitia Vidot is joining us. If you don't know Letitia, she's like a massive she's a huge hit in looking at workforce future, particularly from a feminist angle. And we've got Mariano Mamatimo as well joining us. He's a labor market economist. He's worked for Indeed, he's worked for Amazon. He's going to talk to us on those topics. Going to be fascinating. Must watch if you're interested in the macro. Okay, that's next week. We'll see you then.